Hi, guys, and a very warm welcome to the Vibes Hub with Mel podcast. I'm Mel Miendo, always excited to have you with us. This is the November edition. Thank you so much, guys, for subscribing. And if you haven't subscribed, please make sure you do. Just press that button. All you need to do, just press it there on the YouTube platform and continue to engage with the fresh content that we bring here on the Vibes Hub with Mel podcast. It's all about delving into people's life journeys and experiences, talking about those seldom heard stories and keeping it 100 fresh content all through. So today, for this edition, I have a special person here, and his name is Dr. Desmond Rao. He is the group CIO of the Davis and Shirtliff company, and he's also very passionate about men and family. And we'll get to talk about that. We'll hear about his experience and what he's been doing with the men. So, karibu sana, daktari.
Asante sana, Mel.
Imagine Miss Kona joining daktari.
Ili happened to watu wanaulizanga daktari wa ng'ombe ama wa nini, you know?
Ina happening to you just find yourself, oh, they're calling me doctor. I don't know why.
No, after grueling years, but finally came through.
Karibu.
Yeah, thank you
so
very
good
much.
to have you. We've been talking so much with you, about some of the things that you're doing. But I just want to know what's happening. How are you? Habari ya masiku?
The days have been good. Let's say the city has been kind. The city has been kind.
Despite Nairobi.
This same Nairobi, he town, as they say, the city has been kind. I'm grateful for the seasons now. I think the bigger high is now the parenting one.
Yeah,
which is a big one as you figure out all these other balls in the air, Yeah, but grateful.
I mean, it's interesting. I know you started the Divine Care program, which has been running for about 7 years, and you talk to people who have gone through divorce, both men and women. And you also have a story. You have quite an experience. And I want us to talk about that. But before we get to your story, tell me a bit about this program that you're doing.
Yeah, so interesting. When we started off, we were Divine Care. And over time, we morphed basically to Divine Hats. So now we identify more Divine Hats.
Yes.
So Divine Hats really is a space for people who are going through divorce, separation, or difficult marriages to find a place where they can get onto their path of healing. And so for us, the unique thing is that it's both men and women, and we get them to have both shared experiences. So we've been doing it for the past 7 years now. And with that, we've gotten about 150 people who've gone through the program.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, so that's how far we've come.
Congratulations. That's amazing.
Asante.
And it's November. November is the month where we get to celebrate and honor. Oh, yeah. Actually, you guys call it Movember.
I just lost my beard, I betrayed the tribe.
No shave November.
That's right.
So
Finally, right?
Oh my gosh. But then now, you see, it's interesting because this November as well, like on the 19th is the International Men's Day.
Yeah.
And not many people even talked about.
Oh my gosh. It's like the world's just moving on. I dare you, if it was a women something.
Yeah, you know how we do. You know how for women,
everything would have stopped.
But it's so interesting because, I'd send a message even to, men in my life who are very, have been key in my life. And I'll be like, Happy International Men's Day. They're like, hey,
you got some airtime, right? It's fair.
Some of them didn't even know.
I know.
But it's crazy because we even earlier as we spoke, as we've been talking, you're very passionate about men. And even with the Divine Hearts program, you've been in this program with men who've gone through divorce, and you have gone through divorce as well. I don't know how. Is this something you'd like to, probably just share with us how that experience was for you? Like coming from a space where you're so excited, you're getting married, you've been in the church circles, you've been dating, like, hey, nimepata mdemu wa church. Akina Sisi. Sisi ndo tuko pale, Tell me about that.
Yeah, oh my gosh. I remember you were young, and I think they got to give a disclaimer. You'll be young once, right? Yeah, so you're young and you're looking forward to this big trophy. That to this point, you've been checking all your boxes as you go along. School, campus, all that's cleared. You got a job. Finally, you can do that.
Yeah.
Get married. And especially in the church setting where you come from this place whereby church has maybe just a few few rules. Some of those, the ones that are very public in the marriage thing is that God hates divorce,
Exactly.
So, and sex out of marriage, is also like a no-no. So what you're working hard is to get a license,
You're like, I have my license,
I have
guys.
my
Here it is.
license, that's all what you're looking for. So you get in there. And for me, that's a story. I get in there, and before I know it, oh my gosh, it's drama. It's drama for me. And not too long, actually make a joke and say that my first marriage was like an internship, the way you do like 3 months, you do.
Unakuwa prepared. This is the preparation stage.
3 months, and then will it be renewed or not? You sort of, and then in that time you realize, whoa, I'm not, right? I don't have a marriage anymore, at least for that bit. And you start now agonizing, what am I really into? Because I was separated. Within 3 months, we had a bit of drama. So going down 6 months, it was clear that now we were formally separated. So how do you live with that? How do you face those guys in the church again? How do you live with yourself? Go back to society, and if you're one of those guys who's public as I am, you've called everyone, your workmates came for your wedding.
Tunaenda tu ametuita.
So how do you deal? How do you go back to them and tell them, you guys, wait a minute,
Sorry, guys.
So that is my story, really.
But it's interesting because when you speak about it, you've been very vocal about it, and I must, celebrate you, and I must say, like, I'm so excited that you are also here with me having this conversation. But men don't talk about this stuff, men rarely have those spaces where they're able to, voice out what they're going through. Women do. We have all these care programs, chamas. We have 2 things here, there. We're always in spaces where we talk about these things. How was that for you?
It's interesting you pointed that, because as I told you, we do this program, Divine Hats, and it's for both men and women. And throughout the program, as I talked about the 150, only 15 are men. So it's only 10%. And yet for every one of these ladies, there's most likely a man involved. You know what I'm saying? So for us men, and I realized, even for me, the way society has groomed you and shaped you up is that you're supposed to be the man. You're supposed to have your life and everything about you figured out. So this currency of vulnerability, opening up, sharing, hey, this thing where kuwa mwanaume bana.
Imagine.
You figure out your life. So that in and of itself. It's a complete statement. You don't need to be told more. So basically it's like you hold yourself back, get your stuff in order, and get moving on. And unfortunately, when you go through something like divorce as well, then that begins to crack in many ways. So either men go 2 ways. They're the very, very few, like the ones I was telling you, maybe they're the 10% who will sort of seek out for help. But then there's the whole other 90 who most likely will just go out there, figure out, go on the rampage, whatever that means for them, and try and rebuild. So I think for men, it's hard. That currency, and though there's an argument as well, they say women are more feelers, right?
We're more like we focus on the emotional side of things. You guys are always into the logic, does this make sense? No, it doesn't. Okay, bye.
Wait, see, it failed. So what else? Hey, get another mama. Move on with your life. What's it? So you basically never admit yourself to a place, or could it be a thing of me? That I need help. I need to focus on me. What is it about me? So I think for me, that's the sort of place that my journey got me to.
Okay, and let's talk about this, because, the question that is in my mind for you, what went wrong? Where do you feel that maybe for you in the experience you had in your first marriage, where do you feel like maybe this should have been done a bit differently?
All right.
Were you in those spaces where you are opening up? Watch tuache first marriage. At okay date, like you have a girlfriend, maybe you go to your brother, you're like, hey manze anisumbua. Were you getting spaces where I'm saying catching it onge?
You remind me of a story, I remember once I was sitting on a couch with my bro, just like this, and so early dating years, and I'm dating this chick, and I think something had gone wrong somewhere. The chicks tell you that, hey, for me, Valentine's is not a big thing. Don't do anything. Oh my gosh, I went by that script, That's the first time I got my early education about things not to listen to. How dare you? You got me nothing. I'm like, you said exactly this doesn't mean anything to you.
Record, like, let me press play.
Yeah.
This is what you
Excuses,
said.
minute 4, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, but for me, I remember, so I'm telling my bro that this thing has gone off. As like, and so my bro, he turns awkwardly and asks me, hey, bro, hey, una open up. You know?
Like,
Let me tell you.
So unani show. Nimi una show.
Nimi una show, you know? So, and I think that was an early lesson
for
that,
like,
hey, for men, you know what? Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Wow.
Nyamazio's story.
Okay.
But you asked another question, what went wrong? I think the interesting thing about this story is that when you go through a divorce, sometimes you come out like, hey, she's the one who did. You know, and you always want to look for an avenue. But I think for me, the bigger question was more for me, what happened. And I think initially it was, men have this currency called deny, deny.
Full stop.
Full stop. And if you missed it, go back to the start.
Go back and deny
it says,
again.
Deny. So that was really me on a lot of fronts. And I always felt like, hey, I had to come out there feeling like it's the other person who got it wrong. You know, it's them who maybe were crazy and things like that. But for me, one of the key things I remember, and it's a thing when I look back, I think it comes from even my childhood. I was so conflict adverse. I would be running away from conflict. So, and I had this false sense of peace. You know what? Situishi tupoa. Tusisumbuane, you know. And that for me, what it meant, that if I had done something that needed to be addressed, is like, don't address it. Don't talk about, don't bring that awkwardness. You know, so anyone who brought that up, and including, like now that's in my previous marriage, that will be a recipe for new conflict.
Okay.
The conflict is now the fact that you brought it up.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a thing that I remember I was running away from. And now that I'm actually remarried, you know, a joke I normally make, you know, is that I think I've gone through worse things in my current marriage.
And you're able to overcome.
And you're able to navigate. You know, so
amazing.
it's so ironical when you think about it. But I think as I look at deep within, I didn't have some of the tools that I have now and some of the understanding. And so what my first marriage did for me, that breaking, it got me back to this space whereby I can be humble enough to learn, you know, to put down my ego and for a moment just say, well, could there be something about me that I need to figure out, you know, or I need to learn and relearn so that I am healthy for my next relationship.
Yeah. It's interesting. You speak about like earlier about your brother, because you know how sometimes women, actually most of the times women were always like, you know, you have a whole list, kind of like a list. Like say kama amefika at least amefika kama 50% kwa hii list tunaweza nini, we can discuss. But I don't know if it's the same for men, you know, like for you when you were, because you're young, you were young. I remember, you know, we were friends then. I remember. And you know, having to go through marriage in your younger days and divorce again in your younger days, you know, it's not easy. But I was just, you know, just you know, on a lighter note, like ulikuwa tick my boxes, ama ukukuwa na boxes.
Let me tell you.
Your list yako ilikuwa inakaaje? Tell us.
I used to have this thing. I actually coined a word for it, BMR. You know, basic marriage requirements.
I love it.
And I think
number one,
mine was simple. You know, I was just, and in especially being in the church space, you're not allowed to look to judge too much in terms of, hey, what did you say about her? Oh, I like her, you know, her figure. What are you looking? Are you coveting now? So for me, I was in this naive space whereby, for me, as long as she loves God, she's fine.
Oh, she's a church girl.
She's a church girl. So you try and narrow down. Oh, she's in the choir. They're even better. She's in the, you know,
unafikiria kwaya ndio italetwa kwa nyumba.
Choir ndo, you know, sing baby, sing. You wake up in the night.
Praising Father, we thank you.
Yeah. And I think when I look back, I'm like, oh, I was so naive. I was so naive, you know, in terms of what I was looking out for. And so in my current analogy, I say, okay, and no bad intended. In fact, in other circles, I am a pastor now. But I say for me, salvation is a basic marriage requirement. You know, it's at the lowest level, really, because just pairing up. And for me, it speaks to a value system, you know, but I've come to learn there's way more, you know.
What's the way more? What is the more?
What is the more?
In your experience?
I think marriage is the most rigorous sport or kind of engagement you'll find yourself in. You know, say you're in a workspace, you're dealing with people, you know, I'll see you maybe from 8 to 5 and go home and stuff like that. And I don't have to expose certain things. There's a way I can deal with you if I don't like you.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you come home, the home naturally is a vulnerable space.
Yes.
You know, it's a place whereby literally first people see your nakedness, right? Then they get to see the other side.
The real you.
The real you.
Yes.
God forbid you're with someone else who you don't feel safe around.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like a prison that's at the most heightened level that you're in. Yeah. So, and as you start thinking about it, is when you decide to go into that place of marriage, it's a total different ballgame. And it's sort of, you have to introspect more. Are you ready for it first? You know, are you mature enough for it? Because immediately you walk in, it was all rosy. Everyone danced at your wedding, whatever that was. You know, at the Rorashio we came with Architenges, everyone was, you know. And then you go into that house and there's the two of you.
Oh my.
And you just never know where the first conflict comes from. And it's not because conflict is a bad thing, but you've got to learn how to do conflict well. So you start on those nitty gritties. You start seeing the other side, you know, and if you don't take it well, then over time you just get to feel, am I getting the raw deal here?
Yeah.
Or you start getting resentful,
yes,
you know, or you start hating the other person. And so it can be a very dicey road. So I think for me, it's just been the building skills and not more for the other person. It's more for me. In fact, I normally say right now I'm remarried. I'm so grateful. I'm thankful for my wife. She's been so gracious. She tells me this thing. You know what? I think when we got married, you still had a lot of drama and baggage you're dealing with.
Trauma.
Trauma. Yeah, so you look like you're the guy. You're the guy. But I thank God because of how graceful she's been. But more on my own journey of allowing myself to learn. And as we went through it, I remember one time, because I tell my friend, man, I'm remarried now. Some people feel like, hey, you went through a divorce. It was bad.
Yeah.
Umepitia. You know, come baba, come just sit here.
Come,
this one, just relax. It will be easy.
Yani.
That's one of the biggest jokes, you know.
Oh my goodness.
You come in and you find it bumpy. You know, the things you ran away from.
You still find them,
you
right?
You still find them. So how do you navigate? How do you navigate? And I remember one day sitting to myself and I'd come to a similar sort of, I was getting to a place where I was realizing, hey, here is not vibes as usual. You know, it's not vibes as usual. And it was becoming hard. And I remember this time having a conversation with myself and I asked myself, what if this marriage looks like it's going down the same road as the other.
The first one, yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's a real fear, right?
At least the world gets to confirm you're the problem. Yeah, the first time. No,
so hata utasema ilikuwa nani? Ni wewe.
You know. But then I think for me, I remember sitting down for myself and saying, or is this the part where I go vumilia? Just stick it in?
As we are told so many times, I don't know if this happens in men's circles, but it happens in women's circles, and we're always told, unajua, ndoa ni kuvumilia.
I know.
Vumilia, vumilia bwana yako. Says to like, seriously, guys, do you know what I'm going through? Do you understand?
I know.
I remember the mothers are like, just vumilia.
Yeah.
I don't know this vumilia story.
Yeah, it is. For men, it's almost like kanyaga kubwa kubwa, you know. Kwani is she the only lady in the world? You know, you move on.
So unaona vile iko like we're in two different worlds.
Totally. For men, kwani endo. You know, and there's an arrogance and an ego. You know, that comes up for men. But I remember for me sitting with myself and having to sort of think through it. What if this thing looks like it's going down the other way?
Exactly.
And I remember this time coming to, you know what? The one thing I'm not ready to do is to stay in an unhappy
environment,
relationship and marriage. And you know what that did? It's like light bulb just went on. It just hit me, you know what? I've got to work my marriage. And so you remember in my first marriage, one of my issues was confrontation.
Yeah.
You know,
and dealing with conflict.
Yeah. And I was like, I have to bring this up. We're not okay. And I have to deal with it. You know, I have to deal with it. And so I remember just stepping up.
So you sit with the uncomfortable issues and you allow yourselves to, you know, work on it until
Work on it until it
to
gets
the result
ugly.
of, whatever happens.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But and I think that's one strong resolve that I got. You know what? That I have to do all that I can.
Yeah.
Try and resolve with the tools. And also fight fair. There are people who, when they talk about conflicts, hey, it's World War VI. They're going to take out the other guy.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And they don't care. They're like, you know what? It is you. I'm not going to look at myself. I'm going to say it is you. You're the problem.
I know, as they say, you need like kufa dereva, kufa makanga today is going down. You got any write-off,
But unajua hii kitu ni serious. Unacheka. But let me tell you, the thing that I find so amazing is that you've gone through it and you're able to actually and I know that time it must have been madness, but look at you now. You're able to speak about it in the past, the things you've come out with, what you've learned, what you've unlearned, relearned, and this is who you are now. But you see, sometimes for men out there, they'd be like, hey, manze, say, yeah, labda ya anaweza. As for me, I don't know what the next step is. I've been divorced. Where am I supposed to go?
Yeah, maybe. And I like what you've just done there, because sometimes maybe it's been years dealt with it, and so it can look light, but it's not light when you're going through it. It can be quite heavy. I remember for me, oh my gosh, I remember going back now when I was alone in the house.
Yeah.
You go back to the house, it's dark. You don't put on no light.
Yani.
You just want to, anything that can add to this darkness within. It's like you don't want to mess up.
You want to stay there.
Yeah, you want to stay there. You don't mess up with the ambience, no putting on lights. It's already dark enough.
Yani.
And you stay in that darkness.
Oh, wow.
And you just process. And it's like you process misery and see how much gloom. And then there's this thing that also happens with divorce. And I've had it so many times. It's like when this thing is going wrong, so many other things go wrong.
Oh, so it's like it's a start, and then now it pulls other things.
It calls its brothers and sisters and relatives and those aunties we don't like. Because I remember for me in that same time, I remember work-wise, I had just changed jobs. Actually, I think I was running away from my former workplace because that's where I got married. And I was one of those extra guys. Those guys who send out that emails for saying, thank you for coming to my wedding. And I did a bit of salt today for me. I put even a photo over there, just in case. And then you send to all.
No, wanaekanga kwa archives. So zile kumeenda vibaya wanaitoa. Like, hey, unakumbuka mse vile alikuwa. You're playing with people.
Itaisha tu.
Waka like hapo, unaanza kutrend. Kwa ofisi.
That was, my friend, let me tell you, when I got a job, I left. Yeah. I left for running.
But uliwambia tu kwa heri, like, thank you all, goodbye.
I left. So I go into this other new job, and oh my gosh, that was just a space. I sometimes I think maybe it's just me who couldn't function because I was processing the divorce. But also the work, I just didn't like the environment as well. I must say, just had a horrible time there. And then in terms of my health as well, at that time I had to start going for some physio. Interesting pains. Men who've grown up in the village. Out of nowhere. Yeah. It didn't even make sense. So I have to start going for physio in terms of finance-wise, because now you're out of the job, but they didn't last too long. So I lose the job. And my safety net, at the time, it was this time we had this Chase Bank issue. I don't know if you remember when Chase Bank went down.
Yes.
So there's some money I was banking on, and it was in Chase Bank.
Oh no.
As soon as I left, Chase Bank goes down, and my friend, humbly, my friend, I had to go back home, to my parents' house. And you're going back to a house that time. It's not like, those ones like I've gone back to my room. Oh my gosh, no. All rooms are taken. It's like Jesus period, unaweka mattress
unalala kwa sitting room.
Watu wakiamka, you better be the cock that crows in this house.
Ujipatie shughuli, unaenda uko kitchen.
Unaenda uko.
Let me try and do.
That was my life. So it was a bit going on, and things got dark in many spheres. And you hit like what's your rock bottom. The other thing is that the community that I so knew, even church, which was a big part of my identity, now I was no longer accepted.
So they shunned you just like immediately?
It took time.
Or-
First, I think you're still feeling the stigma. Yeah, because many people, they're like, hey, that's the guy. You
and
get
then you
branded.
can hear those whispers even when you're walking.
And even in your own mind, you even blow them up. So you have to walk around with that. I remember actually, my wife tells you an interesting story. So those ones, they're called. And they are told, because I used to serve with the kids. I used to do kids now worship at the time. So there was once they were called, and as the younger ladies and everything, they were told, hey, you need to be careful. There's this guy here who's going through a divorce. Divorce is like a pandemic. This guy is going through a divorce.
Warned.
So they're being warned. Be very careful right now.
So your current wife was in that space where they were being warned.
In fact, she was the one supposed to be the guard for the other ladies.
Can you imagine?
Just ensure that he doesn't prey on these younger ones. And then guess who you go for?
Huyo mwenye alikuwa supposed to guard knuckle, like, hey guys.
You went for the night guard, hi.
You're like, I bagged this one. It's in my pocket.
I know.
Oh, but that must have been very hard for you, man.
It was because, and I think for me that also redefined how I engage with church.
Exactly.
Because the truth is, I was that guy before. I was the guy.
And now you're experiencing it now, like...
It's real. Because I was the guy, if you ever came and told me, hey, my marriage is not working and I'm going through this trouble, I would say, hey, man, are you just love your wife.
Oh, wow.
As Christ loved the church. You know all those things.
Yeah.
You're loving. Or if it's for wives, you just submit. Wait until yours blows up in your face.
Or now you're
Pick
the one
up your sermon, buddy.
It. You can't.
And go.
And it's so interesting because you see, like how, especially for you, it was just 3 months.
Yeah.
That's a very short period of time because people still remember the wedding. They still remember, like the memories they have is still of, like this, glossy and, like blossom and, all that. But then now you're going through the separation just 3 months after your wedding.
Yeah.
How did you manage?
Yeah.
Honestly.
It was tough. Because I think I remember feeling this aloneness. For once, I felt I was alone. And because now you're stigmatized, or even yourself, because the things that got you into the communities you are in, you no longer fit in anymore. God still works, even in that darkness. Even in that darkness. And I feel for me, God just came for me. I was done for. And it's interesting. Actually, there's this pastor who came through my way. How I got to meet him, how I got introduced to him. He was supposed to help us partly as we navigate this sort of divorce space. And actually, it's Pastor Mulandi of Bapo.
Nairobi Baptist, yes.
Bapo.
Nairobi Baptist.
Yeah, good. Yeah, that's a good one. It's Pastor Mulandi at the time. And so he reaches out, is like, hey, I got your number and will you be humble enough to have a conversation? Yeah, so we sit down and I remember for the first time, this man invites me to his house on a Friday evening, and we go in, and I must say, my analysis of that evening, we just check in. There was a bunch of other guys.
Had you met him before?
No, I've not met him. Yeah, okay, first we met, like, say, over coffee. We just had a fast talk or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we have a few conversations, but later on he invites me to his house. I think he had noticed, because now, oh my gosh, my Friday evenings had started becoming, I will be clubbing with my friends. I had this group of friends,
Just trying to manage whatever
that was my coping.
Through.
Oh my gosh. And I might say the amount of shisha that was blown in my face, I'll go like that song, The Presence of the Lord. It's a different presence. Emotion. I don't know that it was his way of getting me out of that space. So he gave me an alternative. He told me, every Friday, show up in my house. So Friday we'll go. In fact, my analysis, it was like an alcoholic anonymous. So we find guys there, like, hey, which game are we playing today?
So it's just a chill hangout.
Yeah, chill hangout. We're playing charades. Okay, fine. Everyone, hey, cards.
Is this men?
No, it was just mixed. Family setup. It was just a very mixed sort of setting. Yeah. So everyone, we just play games. And then after that, there's food. All right. And for me, that was a thing because now it's bachelor life.
I
was living badly. So we just get some nice food, to dessert at the end, everything. And then after that, nothing much. Just go home. See you next Friday. So that became the trend. And what that did for me is that I started getting another level of acceptance because
they didn't judge you.
They didn't care. They didn't care.
Yeah.
And my life was, in fact, I'd gotten myself into worse things at the time. But he was like, you just show up. Friday, you show up. And that sort of openness and acceptance, that's what got to me. That broke me. Because I started allowing him into my life. Because mostly even as men, we run. Men, vulnerability is not a thing we ever show. But that allowed me to give him space into my life. And we started having a few conversations here and there. And it became so instrumental in just helping to guide me. There are certain crazy things I'd gotten myself into. And he's the one who helped me get out of them. You know, he just told me, you know what? I remember one day he told me, Desmond, the fact that you got an accident on Gong Road doesn't mean you can't get another accident on Gong Road.
Oh, wow.
What it basically meant, the fact that you're sort of in this mess doesn't mean you cannot mess up again.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah,
and so
true.
he gets to wake me up. But I think for me, that the bigger currency was that understanding, that lack of judgment, just feeling accepted, you know, that I could just be me.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that got to me, and he broke through my walls. And I really account a big part of who I became is because of what he did for me. And it was a different version of the Christianese that I had gotten accustomed to. It was a very different language.
Would you then say that if Zabo, we used to call him
Zabo,
that in Bapo, if Pastor Mulandi hadn't reached out to you in that way, do you think that you as Des would have actually gotten to a space where you're the one reaching out, you're the one opening up and trying to get support? Do you think that would have happened?
Oh my gosh.
Or not?
That's hard. I think the odds, most likely not, because I was running.
So that means that's where the men are.
Yeah.
Because you're privileged, let me say, to have Zabo come to you like that.
I know.
You know? A man of his status, just, you know, reach out to you without knowing you, without, you know, like just as a son, you know, take you in as a son. Not many men get that. What happens to them then?
Yeah. I think you've mentioned something so deep, because for me, that's a burden for me. When I see all these ladies show up and no men, maybe that's just the answer. That we just need, what Zabo did for me is what I ought to do. Maybe go out for them.
Exactly.
Yeah, go out for them.
Yeah.
And going out for them sometimes is not, you know, coming with that Bible and reminding them, no. It's just creating spaces that allow them, like what Zabo did. Interestingly, I'll never pay Zabo back. I know, I'll never pay him back. Yeah, and Zabo, wherever you are, I just want to say thank you for what you did. I'll never pay him back. But the one thing he also did is that he planted a seed. And now we're able to pay forwards. Actually, Saturday, I know it's going to be past by the time maybe you post something, we have a barbecue just for men.
And so because, is it something you guys do normally?
Yeah, like we will have not exclusive. Okay, because of Divine Hearts, we have a lot of barbecues that we do, and it's just those spaces. But this one is now going exclusive for men. It's just for men, right? And it's a kind of space. It doesn't have a formula to it. But then I've also seen when men get together and they get a space that they can also be just vulnerable, because men cry too.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and I've come to
learn. As they should.
As they should. Yeah. But what society has done, that we don't want to see your tears. You know, it looks awkward. But to create those spaces, and that we can be strong for each other, you know, that we can cover each other's nakedness. We can learn that, imagine it's okay. It's okay to bring, it's like a renewal. You know, you can almost think about an eagle. The way they say eagles, at some point they go and they defeather and they do all these things to give themselves a renewness of life.
Yeah.
That's what men do. And they need those spaces again. So we hope that's one thing we're going into, to create such spaces and just see what God does. And I pray, because, you know, well, yeah, as you say, there are very many empowered ladies. But let me tell you, you still need empowered men, you know.
Oh my goodness, because you see, we are empowered as women, but who are we empowered for?
Yeah.
Because as an empowered woman, me as male, who will I be empowered for if my partner or my man is not empowered as well?
You're right.
So you see, it'll be like the balance. There's no balance, actually. There'll be no balance.
You're very right.
Yeah.
So that has got to happen more and more. Simple spaces like that. I think people who have the privilege even of doing community at whatever level, because this thing is bigger than we think. Well, and I'm not just putting it maybe at church level, even in the communities, like even in your estate, if whoever has this burden, I don't know who's going to listen to this.
Yeah.
If you have a burden for men, maybe just call the men, just call them for what? Some simple choma, or even if it's not choma way, let's just come for what? Some chai or something.
Yeah, just a hangout.
And when you get people in that space, and they start asking questions. I remember this guy saying that, yeah, you mean that happens and that's not normal? That's not okay? Something different? As in, how are you able to have it different? Because unfortunately, the world has told men how to cope in all the wrong ways. How to cope in all. And that's why we have all these things.
It even becomes more destructive for them,
You get into this hole, and when you get to that bottom of the spiral, it's just you there in that misery, as opposed to lifting people out of this hole and giving them that light and giving them the hope that they need, and because I believe that fatherhood and manhood still has a core place in society today, and as we say, yes, our women are strong and they're equipped, but I think they can even be stronger when they have the right men around them.
Then now imagine the family that will be brought up from that, if both of you are in that space where you're both empowered and you empower each other.
I know.
I mean, the family
you're not competing.
setting would be, oh my gosh, it would be amazing.
And you don't feel like, and you don't feel like you're competing. You're basically complementing and bringing out the best of each other. And I'm learning that even for me in my current relationship, and I'm so grateful for the relearning that I've had to do. My wife, Janet, is not my competitor. In fact, she's the one who was chosen for me to get me to the better version of myself.
Amen. That's amazing.
That I will not feel like I'm walking on eggshells being with her. That it's her who will see certain things, and I don't have to be defensive about it. I don't have to be. It's like to take that, okay, that's what you see. How do I work on that for me? For me. In fact, one joke I normally have, what are the weaknesses that, say, Janet has or Desmond has? It's only the weaknesses that Desmond acknowledges. Because sometimes you go in, sometimes you go in with a script, I'm going to change this man. But I'm going to change.
Or I'm going to change this woman.
I'm going to change this woman.
That's
happen. Such a self-defeating narrative. If you think about it, you're not going to change no one. Change yourself. That's the biggest job you've got to do. If I can learn this thing, you pray for the other person, work on yourself.
That's true.
So I think even as men coming to that place and you feel comfortable, I'm not running from anything.
Let me tell you, I this conversation we need to keep having because I've seen also how sometimes men are able to, just engage in this kind of conversations. Even if you get 1, 2, 3, or 5, I think it works because then they go and tell another man, another guy, like that.
That's
so I'm just so excited that you've been able to come in this podcast and share your journey and what you're doing. And please tell people how they can engage with Divine Hearts, for the men who will be watching, for the women who will be watching, and they'll be like, let me tell my guy, or let me tell my brother, let me tell my cousin, let me tell my friend. How can they engage with Divine Hearts? Where do they?
So for Divine Hearts, we have a program that we do now. It's a structured program. 13 weeks. All right. So we have different cohorts running. Right now we are at cohort 13. Next year, the next cohort will be next year. In January, we put out first on Instagram. You'll find our posters there, Divine Hearts, and also under Divine Care, we'll tag that as well. Okay, so we put that out for anyone who wants to join. Just send them that, and they can join whatever cohort. If they're in a space whereby, and this will be men who are separated or divorced, or even going through a difficult marriage, because I realize even in that space, sometimes people don't have the tools to figure out. And marriage is not one of those things you can go stand on a weighing scale that tells you, hey, your issues are too bad. Get out. Nobody tells you that.
And it's different for everyone, right?
It's different. And so you need a space that is safe deep enough that will help you figure out. And by God's grace, that's the space that Divine Hearts has been and is for many. Yeah.
I think you should, I want you to run with this. Please continue running with it for the men out here, because it's needed. I think every man needs this, especially for those going through some of these difficult things that they're not able to talk about.
That's right. Yeah.
Hata hiyo barbecue, si nini, uambie watu wakuje mkule
I'm
nyama.
not-
Mkule nyama.
Let me, kuna watu tayari.
Well,
But
next
definitely,
time.
next time.
What
Yeah,
could
definitely.
you-
I think, I like that idea actually.
Yeah, man.
Just
Why
opening
not?
it. And men don't need much, They don't
mna
need
chill
much.
too,
We
mna
just
hang
come, we
out.
chill.
Just men, no women. Hata tutakuwa, we will be
We
nowhere.
don't need ushers, ladies out there. I know how gracious you are. We don't need.
Ama
We'll be
tunakuja
fine.
kuserve. Oh, hi, I've come to serve your platter. But yes, I think it's something you can think about, and then we'll be here. I'll be here. This platform will be here to help you, like push for that, because it's something that I'm also passionate about as a woman.
Wow.
I mean, so thank you, Des. This has been so amazing.
Good. And thank you too for the space, actually.
Karibu.
Yeah, it means a lot. And
Karibu sana.
this is a good sort of launch pad into seeing how much more we can do. And we trust that over time, it will not always be the same narrative.
Yes.
Yeah, things are going to change.
Exactly.
Partly, and it will be attributed to this conversation, right? Thank you, Mel.
To Mel.
I know.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
This has been the Vibes Hub with Mel podcast. I've been hanging out with Des. Oh my goodness, this conversation has just been so amazing. And to all the men out there, I know it's still November, so happy International Men's Month, I guess, because the day is already like it was on the 19th. But we celebrate you. We really appreciate all of you men out there. So like if you can be able to engage with Divine Hearts, if you're a man out there and you feel like you need to, just find a space where you want to talk about some of the issues you're going through, please go ahead and check them out on Instagram, right?
That's right.
Just Divine Hearts, just that. Yeah. So check that out on Instagram and engage with the men around you. There's help and there's support. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we'll see you in December, guys. Thank you so much. Please don't forget to subscribe on the platform. Remember, you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, on X and TikTok, Mel Miendo. And we'll see you on the next one. Ciao.
All right, bye-bye.